Admiral Sarah Chen stood at the observation deck of the United Earth Defense Station Hyperion, watching the massive alien vessel approach. The Arcturian ship dwarfed even the largest human spacecraft, its crystalline surface refracting starlight in mesmerizing patterns. After 3 decades of tense peace following first contact, this meeting could change everything. They're requesting permission to dock. Admiral, Lieutenant Rodriguez reported from his station. Diplomatic protocols are being followed to the letter. Chen nodded, her expression neutral despite the gravity of the situation. Grant them clearance, and inform the Ethics Committee that our guests have arrived. The Arcturian had called this meeting, traveling across 12 star systems to make what they termed a proposal of mutual benefit. Chen had read the preliminary briefing a dozen times, each review leaving her more unsettled than the last. The delegation that emerged from the docking bay moved with an unsettling grace. 3 Arcturian, their towering, crystalline-enhanced bodies gleaming under the station's lights. Their leader, who had introduced himself as First Speaker Vextal, stood nearly 9 feet tall, a prime example of their species' genetic engineering prowess. Admiral Chen, Vextal's translator, conveyed his words in perfect English, though his facial expressions remained alien and unreadable. We appreciate your willingness to hear our proposal in person. The meeting room was specially designed for interspecies conferences, with adjustable gravity sections and atmosphere controls to accommodate various biological needs. The Ethics Committee members were already seated. Doctors, military strategists, and humanitarian experts gathered to evaluate whatever the Arcturian were about to propose. The swarm advances. Vextal began without preamble, activating a holographic display that filled the center of the room. 3 star systems lost in the past solar cycle. Our enhanced warriors fight well, but we are being overwhelmed by sheer numbers. The display showed scenes of battle. Massive insectoid creatures swarming over defended positions, their chitinous armor reflecting weapons fire as they pressed forward in endless waves. Chen had seen similar reports from the frontier. The swarm, as they were simply known, had appeared from the depths of uncharted space 2 years ago, consuming everything in their path. We have studied your species extensively, Vextal continued. Human adaptability is unique. Your natural evolutionary path has produced something our scientists find fascinating. We believe, with our biotechnology and your genetic foundation, we could create the perfect warrior species. Dr. Maya Patel, head of the Ethics Committee, leaned forward. You're proposing we allow you to create human super soldiers. Precisely. Vextal's crystalline appendages shifted, creating a soft chiming sound. Your species already possesses remarkable traits: temperature adaptability, exceptional pattern recognition, incredible endurance capabilities. With our enhancements, we could amplify these natural advantages, create warriors capable of turning the tide against the swarm. The room fell silent. Chen watched the committee members exchange glances, their expressions ranging from fascination to horror. And how many subjects would you require for this project? General Torres asked, his voice carefully controlled. Initially, 10,000 volunteers. Once the process is perfected, we would scale up production significantly. Production. Chen felt her jaw tighten at the word choice. Beside her, Dr. Patel's tablet pen snapped in her grip. Speaker Vextal, Chen said, keeping her voice diplomatically neutral. You understand that any such proposal would require extensive review, the ethical implications alone. Ethics. Vextal's translator somehow conveyed his confusion. Admiral, we face extinction. The swarm has already consumed 3 civilizations more advanced than either of ours. They show no signs of slowing. This is about survival. It's precisely because it's about survival that ethics matter more than ever, Dr. Patel interjected. What you're proposing, it would fundamentally alter what makes us human. That is the point. Another Arcturian delegate spoke up. Your humanity, fascinating as it is inefficient for warfare. We can improve upon it. Chen watched the holographic display, showing the endless waves of the swarm. She thought about the frontier colonies, about the millions of lives at stake. Then she thought about the word production again, about treating human beings as materials to be processed and enhanced. "We appreciate the gravity of the threat," Chen said finally, "and we appreciate you bringing this proposal to us. However, I believe I speak for the committee when I say we'll need time to properly evaluate all aspects of this suggestion." "Time is a luxury we may not have," Vextol responded. "The swarm will be faced." Chen cut him off, her voice firm. "But we will face it as humans, with all our inefficiencies and limitations. Those aren't weaknesses, Speaker Vextol. They're what make us who we are." The meeting continued for several more hours, but Chen knew the decision had already been made. As she watched the HFY delegation depart later that day, she couldn't help but wonder if they understood what they'd really asked for. Not just the creation of super soldiers, but the fundamental alteration of what it meant to be human. Back in her office, Chen drafted her initial report to the United Earth Council. The threat was real, the need for action urgent. But humanity had faced extinction-level threats before. They'd survived ice ages with stone tools. They'd crossed oceans in wooden boats. They'd reached the stars through ingenuity and determination, not through biological shortcuts. "Lieutenant Rodriguez," she called over the comm, "schedule a meeting with R&D. If we're going to face the swarm, we're going to do it our way. Let's see what human ingenuity can come up with when we put our minds to it." As she sent the message, Chen smiled slightly. The HFY were right about one thing. Human adaptability was unique, but they'd completely misunderstood why. It wasn't in their genes. It was in their spirit, in their creativity, in their stubborn refusal to accept impossible odds. And no amount of genetic engineering could improve on that. 3 months after the HFY delegation's visit, the research and development facility on Luna Base hummed with activity. Dr. James Harper watched through reinforced glass as a standard-issue combat suit underwent stress testing. No genetic modifications, no biological enhancements, just human innovation at its finest. "Run the simulation again," he ordered, eyes fixed on the holographic display showing the suit's performance metrics. "Let's push it to 130% this time." His team had worked around the clock since Admiral Chen's directive came through. While the HFY focused on creating better soldiers, humanity had chosen a different path, creating better tools for regular humans to use. The combat suit on display represented thousands of hours of development. It didn't enhance the human inside. It amplified their existing capabilities. Synthetic muscle fibers that responded to natural movement, adaptive armor that learned from damage patterns, and neural interface systems that felt as natural as moving one's own limbs. Dr. Harper, a young engineer, burst into the observation room, tablet in hand. "The results from Field Test Group Alpha just came in. You need to see this." Harper took the tablet, his eyes widening as he scrolled through the data. Field Test Group Alpha, regular Marines training with the new equipment, had just outperformed the HFY's enhanced warriors in every category except raw strength. But the differences in coordination, adaptability, and tactical thinking were what really stood out. "Send this to Admiral Chen immediately," Harper ordered, "and get me a secure line to Captain Martinez at the training facility." The screen flickered to life, showing Captain Sofia Martinez's face. Behind her, soldiers in prototype suits ran through combat drills. "Tell me you're seeing these numbers, James," Martinez said without preamble. "My people are performing beyond all projections." Harper nodded, still scanning the data. "How are they adapting to the neural interfaces?" "That's the beautiful part. They're not just adapting, they're innovating. Watch this." Martinez turned her camera to show a group of Marines. "Jenkins, show the doctor what you figured out yesterday." A soldier in a midnight black suit stepped forward. The neural interface was designed to allow fine control of the suit's enhanced capabilities, but Jenkins moved with a fluid grace that the designers hadn't programmed. The suit's synthetic muscles flowed like water, allowing movements that should have been impossible. "I used to dance ballet," Jenkins explained, executing a perfect spin that somehow transitioned into a combat stance. "Found out the suit responds to muscle memory just like a human body. Been teaching the others how to incorporate different movement styles into their combat techniques." Harper leaned back, a smile spreading across his face. This was exactly what they'd hoped for. Not super soldiers, but human creativity and adaptability enhanced by technology that grew with them. "The Arcsury's enhanced warriors are impressive," Martins continued, "but they're predictable. They fight exactly how they were designed to fight. My people, they surprise me every day with new applications of the technology." An alarm blared through the facility, cutting their conversation short. Harper's security terminal lit up with urgent messages. "Swarm vessels detected at the edge of the Procyon system," he read aloud. "All military personnel to battle stations. This isn't a drill." Martinez's expression hardened. "Looks like we're about to field test these suits in actual combat. My team is ready." "Sophia," Harper called before she could end the transmission. "Be careful out there. We still don't know everything these suits can do." She smiled grimly. "That's the point, isn't it? Neither does the enemy." As the facility transformed into a hive of urgent activity, Harper couldn't help but think about the Arcsury's proposal. They had wanted to change humans to fit their idea of the perfect warrior. Instead, humanity had found a way to create tools that adapted to human ingenuity and creativity. In the days that followed, as reports came in from the Procyon system, Harper's team worked tirelessly to analyze combat data and implement improvements. The suits learned from each engagement, but more importantly, the humans wearing them learned and adapted even faster. "Send the latest performance data to Admiral Chen," Harper instructed his team. "And add a note. Project Prometheus is exceeding all expectations. Humanity doesn't need to be changed. We just need the right tools to be ourselves." As he watched another group of Marines training with the suits, Harper noticed something remarkable. Each soldier moved differently, used the technology in unique ways. Where the Arcsury had sought uniformity and predictability, humanity had embraced diversity and creativity. The swarm was still coming, but humanity would face them as they had faced every challenge in their history, by adapting, innovating, and refusing to sacrifice what made them human in the first place. The suits weren't creating super soldiers. They were empowering regular humans to be extraordinary in their own unique ways. And as the first reports of victories against swarm scout forces began to come in, Harper knew they had made the right choice. Humanity's strength had never been in raw power or genetic perfection. It had always been in their ability to adapt, to innovate, and to face impossible odds with ingenuity and determination. The real test was still to come, but for the first time since the swarm had appeared, Harper felt genuine hope. Not because they had created the perfect warrior, but because they had found a way to let warriors be perfectly human. Captain Sofia Martinez watched the tactical display aboard the UES Thermopylae as the swarm fleet emerged from hyperspace. They looked like a dark cloud spreading across the stars. Thousands of bioorganic ships moving with terrifying coordination. "All squadrons, report in," she commanded, her voice steady despite the gravity of the situation. The Procyon system's defense would be the first real test of humanity's approach to warfare. The Arcsury battle group had already engaged the swarm's forward elements. Their enhanced warriors fought with incredible strength and precision, but Martinez could see the pattern in their attacks. Perfectly executed but utterly predictable. "This is Jenkins, Alpha Squad ready." The former ballet dancer's voice crackled through the comm. "Neural interfaces at optimal levels." "Everyone's got their game face on, Captain." Martinez smiled slightly. Each squad had developed its own fighting style over the past months of training. Alpha Squad moved like dancers, Beta like martial artists, and Gamma had somehow incorporated parkour into their combat techniques. It wasn't what the designers had intended, but that was exactly the point. Swarm boarding parties detected on decks 3 through 7, the ship's AI announced. Arcturian forces engaging on deck 4. Security teams responding. Alpha Squad, with me, Martines ordered, activating her own combat suit. The neural interface hummed to life, feeling like a second skin. Let's show our allies there's more than one way to fight this war. They moved through the ship's corridors with practiced precision. The suit's adaptive armor shifted colors to match their surroundings, another innovation born from a Marine who'd studied chameleon genetics. Through the transparent sections of the hull, Martinez could see space battles raging. Arcturian ships firing precise volleys, while swarm vessels swarmed like angry insects. They found the first signs of combat on Deck 5. An Arcturian squad had engaged a group of swarm warriors, the enhanced aliens fighting with incredible power, but struggling against the swarm's unpredictable movements and sheer numbers. Jenkins, take your team left, Martinez commanded. Williams, right flank. Show them what humans can do. The human squads moved like water, flowing around the rigid formation of their Arcturian allies. Jenkins led his team in a complex series of movements that looked more like a deadly dance than traditional combat. The suits amplified their natural agility, letting them strike from impossible angles while the adaptive armor learned and adjusted to the swarm's attacks. Captain, they're adapting to our patterns, Williams reported, switching to randomized assault sequences. This was where human creativity truly shone. While the Arcturian warriors maintained their perfect but predictable forms, the human squads constantly changed tactics. One moment they moved like boxers, the next like acrobats. The swarm, used to facing opponents with fixed fighting styles, couldn't adapt fast enough. Fascinating, an Arcturian commander observed as the last swarm warrior fell. Your warriors, they fight without pattern, yet with perfect coordination. We call it improvisation, Martines explained, already moving her team toward the next engagement. Humans have been doing it in art, music, and combat for thousands of years. The battle raged for hours. The swarm pressed their attack with mindless determination, but everywhere they met human forces, they found themselves facing an enemy that refused to become predictable. Each squad adapted differently to each situation, sharing successful techniques through the neural network while maintaining their own unique approaches. Multiple hull breaches on Deck 2, the ship's AI warned. Swarm forces converging on the reactor core. All squads, converge on the reactor, Martinez ordered. Time to show them everything we've got. What followed would later be called the dance of the reactor core in field reports. Human squads moved in perfect chaos, their suits learning and adapting to both their allies' movements and the enemy's attacks. Jenkins led a team in a lethal ballet above the reactor, while Williams's squad used the walls and ceiling like urban freerunners. The Arcturian warriors watched in amazement as humans turned the tight space around the reactor into an ever-changing battlefield. Where their enhanced strength met resistance, human ingenuity found a way around. Where their perfect formations were broken, human adaptability created new opportunities. Hours later, as the last swarm ships retreated from the Procyon system, Martinez stood with the Arcturian commander on the observation deck. The space around them was littered with debris from both sides, a testament to the battle's ferocity. We have fought the swarm across 12 star systems, the commander said through his translator. Never have we seen them driven back like this. Your approach to warfare, it defies our understanding. Martinez watched her teams running maintenance on their suits, each soldier moving with their own unique style even in these routine tasks. That's because you tried to create the perfect warrior, she replied. We just gave good warriors the tools to be better at being themselves. The Arcturian commander was silent for a long moment. Perhaps, he said finally, we have much to learn from humanity's imperfections. As Martinez headed to debrief her teams, she couldn't help but smile. The swarm would be back, probably with new adaptations of their own. But they would find humanity ready. Not with an army of perfect soldiers, but with warriors who brought their whole selves to the battlefield, who fought with both heart and technology, and who proved that being human wasn't a weakness to overcome, but a strength to embrace. Dr. Maya Patel walked through the recovery ward of the Hyperion Medical Station, tablet in hand, observing both human and Arcturus soldiers recovering from their encounters with the swarm. 6 months of continuous combat had taken their toll on everyone, but the differences in how each species handled the stress were becoming increasingly apparent. The Arcturi-enhanced warriors sat in perfect posture, their crystalline augmentations gleaming under the medical bay's lights. They were the picture of military discipline, even in recovery. Yet something was off. A vacancy in their eyes, a mechanical quality to their movements that hadn't been there at the start of the war. In contrast, the human section of the ward was alive with activity. Soldiers in various stages of recovery gathered in groups, sharing stories, laughing, crying, supporting each other through the trauma of war. Their combat suits hung nearby, each one bearing the unique modifications and battle scars of its wearer. Dr. Patel, a familiar voice called out. Jenkins, the ballet dancer turned warrior, was sitting up in his bed, his right arm in a regeneration chamber. "Come to check on your guinea pigs. How are you feeling, Lieutenant?" she asked, noting the way his hands still moved in graceful patterns, even while injured. The neural interfaces had created such strong connections that many soldiers maintained their combat movements even off-duty. "Better than yesterday, worse than tomorrow," he quipped, then grew serious. "But I'm worried about our crystal friends over there. Something's not right with them." Patel nodded. Her own observations had led to the same conclusion. The Arcturi's enhanced warriors were showing signs of severe psychological strain, but not in any way their creators had anticipated. "First Speaker Vextal is arriving tomorrow to assess the situation," she informed Jenkins. "Their command is concerned about the performance degradation in their enhanced units." "Performance degradation?" Jenkins scoffed. "They're breaking. You can't engineer out humanity and expect the mind to keep functioning." Before Patel could respond, alarms blared throughout the station. "Swarm vessels detected. All combat-ready personnel to battle stations." This is not a drill. The response from the 2 recovery wards couldn't have been more different. The Arcturi warriors stood as one, moving with mechanical precision toward their posts. The humans erupted into organized chaos, checking on each other, helping the more injured to safety, those able to fight quickly suiting up. "Jenkins, you're not cleared for combat," Patel protested as the lieutenant retrieved his suit. He grinned, already stepping into the neural interface. "With respect, Doc, my arm might be busted, but my legs still work. And this dance ain't over yet." From her position in the station's command center, Patel watched the battle unfold. The swarm had adapted to the Arcturi's tactics, their movements now perfectly countering the enhanced warriors' programmed responses. But the human forces remained unpredictable, each squad fighting in their own unique style, adapting and innovating even in the middle of combat. "Remarkable," First Speaker Vextal commented, having arrived early to witness the engagement. "Your warriors continue to surprise us. Even injured, they fight with spirit." "That's because we didn't try to engineer out their humanity," Patel replied, watching Jenkins' squad executing a complex maneuver that looked more like a deadly performance than traditional combat. "Your enhanced warriors are stronger, faster, more precise, but they're limited by their programming, both physical and psychological." The battle raged for hours. The Arcturi enhanced units fought with diminishing effectiveness, their programmed responses becoming increasingly inadequate against the swarm's adaptations. But the human squads kept fighting, kept adapting, kept supporting each other. In the aftermath, as Patel conducted her psychological evaluations, the contrast became even starker. The Arcturi warriors showed clear signs of severe trauma, their enhanced minds unable to process the horrors of prolonged combat. The humans, while also traumatized, were coping through community, through creativity, through their fundamental ability to adapt and support each other. "We made a mistake," Vextal admitted during their final assessment meeting. "In pursuing biological perfection, we created warriors incapable of handling the psychological burden of war. Your humans, with all their imperfections, their emotions, their chaos, they are more resilient than our enhanced soldiers could ever be." Patel thought about Jenkins, still practicing his ballet movements in the recovery ward, teaching other injured soldiers how to incorporate dance into their physical therapy. She thought about the way human squads had developed their own support systems, their own ways of dealing with trauma and stress. The human mind evolved over millions of years to handle stress, trauma, and adaptation, she explained. "You can't engineer that. You can't program it. It comes from our very imperfections, from our need to rely on each other, from our ability to find beauty and meaning even in the darkest moments." As she finished her report that evening, Patel added a final note. "The greatest strength of humanity isn't in our potential for enhancement, but in our capacity for resilience, adaptation, and connection. We don't need to be made perfect. We just need to be allowed to be perfectly human." Admiral Sarah Chen stood once again in the observation deck of the Hyperion, but this time she wasn't alone. First Speaker Vextal and representatives from 12 alien civilizations gathered around the holographic display showing the latest swarm movements. 1 year had passed since the Arctury's original proposal, and everything had changed. "The swarm has been pushed back from 3 major systems," Shen reported, highlighting the tactical map. "Our combined forces have achieved what none of us could do alone, but not in the way we initially expected." The assembled representatives watched as battle footage played across the display. Human squadrons moved with their characteristic unpredictability, their combat suits now integrating technologies from multiple alien civilizations. Each squad still maintained its unique fighting style, but now they seamlessly coordinated with alien allies who had learned to embrace their own natural strengths rather than seeking artificial perfection. "When we first approached humanity," Vextal addressed the gathering, "we believed we needed to create the perfect warrior through genetic engineering. We were wrong. The humans showed us that true strength lies not in engineered perfection, but in natural adaptation and diversity." Dr. Harper stepped forward, displaying the latest combat suit designs. "We've developed these systems to work with each species' natural capabilities," he explained. "Instead of trying to change the warrior, we create tools that adapt to them." The footage showed examples. Crystalline Arctury warriors moving with newfound creativity, their natural strength enhanced but not controlled by adaptive technology. Avian Krila fighters soaring through space battles with graceful unpredictability. Each species fighting in their own way, but all coordinating in an ever-changing dance of combat that the swarm couldn't predict. "The swarm adapts quickly," Captain Martinez added, her combat suit gleaming with recent battle scars. "But they can only adapt to patterns they can recognize. Our strength lies in our diversity, in our ability to be unpredictable, in our capacity to innovate and create new patterns faster than they can adapt to the old ones." Jenkins, now a combat instructor for mixed species squadrons, demonstrated with a group of trainees. Humans, Arctury, and other alien species moved together in complex formations that combined each race's natural abilities with shared technology. The rigid distinctions between species that had once defined military doctrine had given way to a fluid integration of natural strengths. "Evolution chose a different path for each of our species," Dr. Patel addressed the gathering. "We tried to override those choices through genetic engineering, through the creation of super soldiers. But in doing so, we worked against billions of years of natural development. Humanity's refusal to take that path seemed like stubbornness at first. Now we understand it was wisdom." The tactical display shifted to show the latest intelligence on the swarm. Their numbers were still vast, their threats still real, but for the first time, they were retreating more than advancing. Their perfectly adapted attacks faltered against forces that refused to become predictable, that celebrated and enhanced their natural diversity rather than seeking artificial uniformity. We face a choice, Chen concluded, looking at each representative in turn. Do we continue trying to engineer the perfect warrior, or do we embrace what evolution has already given us? The ability to adapt, to innovate, to work together while maintaining our unique strengths. The vote that followed was unanimous. The combined fleet would abandon the super soldier programs, focusing instead on developing technologies that enhanced natural abilities while preserving the essential nature of each species. The Arctuary would lead the development of adaptive crystalline technology. The Kreela would share their mastery of spatial dynamics, and humanity would continue to demonstrate the power of unpredictability and innovation. Later, as the representatives departed to implement the new protocols, Vextel approached Chen privately. "When you rejected our original proposal," he said, "we thought humanity was being foolishly sentimental. Now we understand that you were protecting something precious, not just your genetic purity, but your capacity for genuine adaptation." Chen watched as a mixed squadron of human and alien fighters ran combat drills, each moving in their own unique way while maintaining perfect coordination. "We never needed to be made perfect," she replied. "We just needed to remember that our imperfections, our differences, our very humanity, these are our greatest strengths." The swarm was still out there, still adapting, still threatening, but they faced an alliance that had learned to embrace natural evolution over artificial enhancement, that celebrated diversity instead of seeking uniformity. Humanity's refusal to build super soldiers hadn't been a weakness. It had shown the way forward for all spacefaring civilizations. As Chen prepared her final report on the new combined strategy, she smiled at the irony. In trying to create the perfect warrior, they had almost lost the very things that made them strong. Sometimes, evolution's choice was wiser than any engineered solution. The future of warfare wouldn't belong to super soldiers or genetic engineering, but to those who could adapt, innovate, and remain true to their natural heritage while embracing new possibilities. The stars outside the Hyperion's windows seemed brighter somehow, as if reflecting the hope of species that had remembered who they were meant to be.